Welcome back to the Luis Diaz Lupe Juarez Candidate Forum, Part 2. When we left off, we were talking with Lupe. Lupe, you were telling us a little bit about having gone to high school in Ceres and about your father bringing you guys here from Casa Grande, Arizona.
Yes, we grew up here in the Valley in California, and as you know, it's a lot of agriculture, especially back then. So yeah, we spent a lot of time out, picking fruit, almost anything you can think of on the tree or the ground. But the last job I actually did out in the field was my dad was he ran an almond ranch. So during the harvest, during pruning, we spent a lot of time out there until I started the cannery.
And Louis, we were talking a little bit too about your dad, and I think he had came to the area. Well, what brought your dad to Modesto?
Well, my dad is actually from Chalco, Mexico City, and my mom is from a state that is Zacatecas. And it's a small world, Otis. They end up meeting here in Livingston, California. Way back, I'm talking 1956, 57, back in those years. And this is where they met. They met here in the U.S. and they got married. And my grandmother she actually was the one that ended up getting a job in the cannery. Before that, obviously, they worked in other places, but eventually they ended up working in a cannery. And yeah, I'm literally a third generation Teamster member and a cannery worker, because my grandmother, my grandfather, from my mother's side, and also from my dad's side, my grandmother, they worked in the cannery.
Okay, so we talked about your backgrounds and your family backgrounds, and so at some point both of you became shop stewards and got involved in union life at the canneries. So why don't we start with Lupe? Lupe, how did you end up getting involved with the union in the cannery?
Well, I started as a shop steward like back in 1985, and then I was approached like in 2003 to see if I wanted to be a seasonal agent, business agent. And the first time I was asked, I actually said no. It was like the third time where I finally agreed, because they were looking for a bilingual business agent for the summer. And so I went to work that summer as a business agent, then went back to the plant. In January of 2004, they called me back on a full-time basis. 2004 and 2005, I worked as a business agent until that term ended.
So if I count right, that's 27 years or 17 years?
Yes, yes.
Involved?
Yeah.
And Louis, when did you talked about being a steward and being impressed with the union, but at what point did you show interest in being an officer?
I want to say it's similar stories here, because I was also approached by David Montoya, and this was David came back and he decided to run for Secretary Treasurer in 1995, and before that, I would imagine that, when they go out, and that's usually how this works, you want to, when you go out and you pick and you ask support from some of the workers out there in the industry, it's got to be somebody that, it's either well known, that is respected, has character, and they go and they start asking and recruiting people. And way back, just like they asked Lupe, they asked me if I wanted to be involved and if I wanted to run as a vice president. And that's when I first started. I was blessed, thanks to the members. They entrusted and elected me in 1995. And from that point forward, I ended up serving in 4 different administrations, 3 administrations as a vice president, and in 2 as a president.
So, and you said, as you said, and I think most people know, you are the president. But now you're running for secretary treasurer, and I'm sure that the members that are listening are curious what motivated you at this point to run for the principal office of secretary treasurer.
Okay, well, let me explain this. When you start and you get involved in the politics, obviously the number one thing is when I was asked and I accepted this job, and I was giving some advice, not only by my father, but friends and co-workers, that, you know, the number one and the priority here is to make decisions on how it's going to benefit the members, because now I was going to have a position that I had the power to make decisions and how it was going to affect the workers. And when I made that decision and took those positions, there was a lot of responsibility, a lot of pressure. And the reason I say this is because, and I'm pretty sure it happens in Lupe, and anybody that works in the can industry knows this, that I have a lot of family, relatives. My father and my mother worked in the cannery. I had uncles, my grandmother, grandfather, friends that worked there, and they depended that, you know, that when I went in there, and they trusted me to go in there to make decisions, to make the right decisions for them. And I was not going to go in there to benefit myself. I had an obligation, and I still have that obligation. I still know a lot of people. I know a lot of friends, and I have a lot of family members out there. This has been my life. And I would say one thing: when you are given that opportunity, you got to understand that when you, the member, are going to elect your officials, you got to make sure that what is their background? Do they have experience? How long have they been doing this job? What kind of jobs have they been doing? Do they understand your line of work? And I am proud to say that with the team that we're building up, we have that. We have that experience. We're not just coming out of the, you know, bush out there and then saying that, hey, I just want to be a secretary treasurer. We gained and we did our time, and we know what we're doing, and we know what we're talking about.
So after almost two terms as president, you developed some differences with the current secretary treasurer.
Yes. Now, let me explain it this way. And again, you know, like I said, I have served with different principal officers. I served with David Montoya. I was under Sam Martinez. I actually had the opportunity to work with Lupe Juarez, and now Adam Ochoa. And when that happens, you learn. You learn from every administration. And I'm not going to waste my time in talking about all the bad things. You just gather and learn, you know, the values and what can you bring for the future. And the problem here is that when you run for office and you're not the principal officer, then you're really not going to get much accomplished unless the 7 elected board members are in line with your ideas. And the person who has the control is going to be the secretary treasurer. But again, it is a big responsibility job, and who else than the man I got right here to my right that understands that and has the experience. So it's a very, very important decision that the members have to make in electing their officer, who's going to be out there, you know, helping them out.
So, in fairness to the members, share with us some of the difficulties that you run into.
Well, like I said,
I know you said you don't want to talk about the bad things.
Let me put it this way. one of the biggest issues here that I have experienced by working under the administration of Adam Ochoa is that if you do not agree or if you do not vote on his ideas or on his issues, basically you have an enemy. It just doesn't make any sense the way he runs his meetings, because we all have a vote. We all have our opinions, and we all should be able to express how we feel about the issues that are going on in our world out there with the workers. And there are some issues that he has experience on, and there are others that are not. And when you give him your opinion, and if he doesn't agree with it, basically he turns against you. He retaliates against you, and that's not right. That's not the way you do business. And you look at the history. I mean, he started 9 years ago, and he started with different officers, and I can name a few. You know, you have Mr. Flores, you have Silvio Lovato, you have Steve Vieira. I mean, I can name Tim Till, Katie, in which they have all just not turned on him, but told him, you know what, Adam, I'm just not going to run with you. I'm not going to support you. You know, you're going on a different direction. And this is exactly what happened this time. You know, I tell this man, you know, you talk about a two-faced person. Last year in 2019, this man, I'm not going to say he was begging me, but he was putting a lot of pressure for me to make a commitment to run with him. And it started way back in April of 2019. And we had several meetings. We had about 3 or 4 meetings in which I have already told this man, Adam, your ideals and the direction that you're now taking are local. I disagree. I don't like the way you're doing business now. You know, I'm getting a lot of complaints. Members call my office and are saying, hey, we're not getting any help. We continually called the office and they don't return our calls. And the problem with that is anybody that's out there in any plant, whether it's ConAgra, whether it's Del Monte, whether, you know, Stanislaus Foods or Ruan or UPS, whoever's out there, and if they're not taking care of their jobs, that reflects on all of us. It reflects on the whole office, on the union hall. They're not going to say, you know, Adam Ochoa is not taking care of us. They're going to say the union is not helping us out. And everybody gets blamed for that issue. So Lupe could be doing his job. I could be doing my job. But if Adam is not doing his job, it reflects on everybody else. And that's a problem. When the leader of your local is not taking care of issues, and if he's not addressing the problems, then it's time to make a decision.
So, Lupe, you also worked for some period of time for this current administration, if my recollection is correct.
Yes, I did. I worked for approximately about a year as a business agent. And I saw back then that I didn't like the way it was being ran. I didn't like, and I told him, I mentioned this to Louis, that if he had been the one in charge, I'd still be there. And I think we can work together. I think we could work together then. I think we can work together now. And I think we can work together in the future because we have the same goals. We have discussed several issues, and the one thing that we have very similar is to represent the members, and the members come first.
Now, if you allow me, Otis, I just want to finish my story in which, you know, I'm saying that I'm calling this man a two-face. And the reason I said that is because when I said he was asking me to run with him and to make a commitment to run with him, it was not until October of 2019 where I just flat out told him, Adam, I am not going to support you. I am not going to run with you. And I have made a decision. So please don't count me in. And I'm going in a different direction. From that point forward, Otis, I took a vacation in December. And when I came back on January 2nd of 2020, My office was completely cleaned. It was cleaned out. All the grievances that I had, all the contracts, all the information, any handwritten notes that I had in there, my business cards, my phone from the office, the computer from the office, everything was stripping out. And I was just told by him, I'm going to have a meeting with you. So as soon as you come in, please come into my office.
So before you go any further, I'm getting signaled that we're at the 10-minute point. So we're going to take a little break here, and when we come back, get into this issue in a little more detail.
All right.